Hello, grandson. This is your grandfather, and I'm going to tell you a story about my sister. My sister died at a very young age. She was 7 years old. She died of a brain tumor. She was sick for a long time, and there's nothing funny about that at all, except for this story that I'm going to tell you that happened years after my sister died. Billy Bowie and John Hartline and I had gone to Greenville. We were living in Washoe, South Carolina, and Greenville is where all the movie theaters were and good restaurants. And we had gone to see the movies. Had done something in Greenville, and we were driving back at night. And I was driving my car, and John Hartline was next to me in the passenger seat, and Billy Bowie was sitting in the back seat, and we were just telling stories because that's what Southerners do. When we get together, we tell stories to each other. And we were telling stories, and we got to telling about stories about how we used to get a spanking from our parents, um, or a whooping. And I told stories, and Billy Bowie told stories, and John, and I didn't have that many stories to tell. And but I did have one, and that is when I was about 4 or 5 years old. One of my earliest memories, my dad gave me a toy gardening set, plastic rake and plastic shovel and things like that. For some reason, when he gave it to me, he told me, "Now, son, whatever you do, don't you hit your sister in the head with that shovel." It was just a tiny little plastic shovel. But I got to tell you, it had never crossed my mind to hit her in the head with a shovel until he told me not to. And I got to thinking about it. What would happen if I hit her in the head with a shovel? So I hit her in the head with this shovel. She started crying and yelling, and she went in the house and told mom and dad, and dad came out and he fussed at me. He put me over his knee, but he didn't spank me. He I don't think he ever spanked me. He just always threatened to spank me, and that was all it took, was just the fear of being spanked by my dad. And at the end of the story, I said, John and Billy, I could always talk my dad out of a spanking. And Billy Bowie, sitting in the back seat and didn't have a seatbelt on, he was kind of leaning forward, asked, "Well, what happened to your sister?" Because he knew that I had an older sister, about 16 years older, Shannon, and uh, he knew that this was not a story about Shannon. He didn't know any other sister. And I said, "Oh, Missy, well, she died." Well, Billy got real quiet, and John and I kept telling stories and laughing and carrying on. Finally, Billy Bowie leaned up and said, "I got to tell you guys, that story about you hitting your sister in the head with a shovel, that bothers me." I said, "Why?" He said, "If my son had killed my daughter with a toy shovel, I think I would have spanked him." John Hartline and I laughed and laughed and laughed. Billy Bowie just leaned back. I think he put his seatbelt on finally. And finally, John and I, when we finally stopped laughing so hard, we were able to say, well, she died of a brain tumor. It didn't have anything to do with being hit in the head with a shovel. But until then, he thought, my goodness, I'm driving in the car with a murderer. Oh, I mean, John Hartline, he was quite a guy. He and I got into all sorts of stuff when we were a kid. Um, One year, my dad decided I needed to go take a class at Piedmont Technical College, mathematics course during the summer to keep my mind on school work. And I don't know why. I never did that well in math in school. And because I was going, poor old John Hartline, his mom and dad decided he needed to go too. So John, he and I went to school there, and I don't remember much about the class, but I do remember one night, it was a nighttime class. We left the school, and we got in the car, and all of a sudden John said, wait a minute. I got to take a leak. It's a long ride home. And it was about an hour's drive home. And he said, I got to take a leak. Got to urinate. And he got out of the car, but being a country fella, he never saw the need to actually use a indoor plumbing. So we're in the parking lot. So he just unzips and starts peeing right there in the parking lot. Well, I'm sitting there, and it's my car, and I'm behind the driver's seat. The car's already turned on. He's standing on one side, and on this side, I notice there's a bunch of girls coming. And I couldn't help myself. I put the car in reverse, honked the horn, headlights beaming right on John. He's got his hands full. And the girls started laughing at him. John finished up what he was doing, got in the car, and he started pounding my shoulder. Yeah, I think it's still short to this day. I don't think that's arthritis. I think that's where John Hartline pounded me so hard, and I couldn't hit him back because I was laughing so hard at poor old John Hartline. That's the way John was. But I got to tell you, John and I have been good friends for a long time, since I guess 1968. And right now it's the year 2000. So we've been friends for quite a while. And if I ever needed any real help, I always figured I could call on John, and he can call on me anytime. Good friends are hard to find. And I know that there's probably a story or two that John tells on me.